Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss what seems to be Sunak's plan for the second full week of the general election campaign: pork barrel politics and grand promises that he won't keep. Essentially, last week's plan to promise to enslave the young didn't work, so now they're falling back on good old-fashioned bribery. Unfortunately for the Tories, they're attempting the same bribes they did last time, which they failed to deliver on. So it's just possible that people won't believe them this time. In fact, I've said a few times in the past, if you look through Conservative Party manifestos from 2010 onwards, you will notice the odd promise which they keep putting in there. They put it in the manifesto, they don't deliver it, then they just stick it in the next manifesto and keep going. After all, if they actually delivered on their promises, they'd have to come up with new ones the following election. Much more efficient to just keep reusing the same promises. It's basically the only recycling we ever get from the Tories. And the two main ones being recycled this weekend seem to be levelling up funds for mostly Conservative areas, of course, and 100 new GP surgeries to be built. Where have we heard this before? I mean, just look at this headline. Labour attacks plans for most hospital funds to go to Tory-held areas. Oh, hang on a minute. No, sorry, wait a minute. That's the headline from just before the 2019 general election. This year's is Sunak suffers poll blow as cash for votes row erupts. In fact, the headline is worse this time because they're actually going to lose. But the policy is the same. It's, we're going to give these areas some money. They need it for levelling up. Are these areas Tory areas? Yeah, marginal Tory areas, ones that you're actually going to struggle to win back. Yeah, like Gainsborough near me. Yes. But it's levelling up, you see, it's levelling up. All right, didn't you promise them levelling up funds last time? Yeah, what happened to that? Oh, we had trouble. It's just using public money. No, it's not even using public money to buy votes. It's using the promise of public money to buy votes in order to win the power needed to yank the money away, squeeze people even more so they can swell their offshore bank accounts. But it should be less effective this time because levelling up was one of the three main platforms of the Conservatives' election campaign in 2019. They made a big show of it and then didn't deliver. Yes, there will still be some people gullible enough to believe it, even after 14 years of their town going downhill, but I don't think there's going to be enough of them. After all, it didn't take long for even Tory MPs to realise what their own party's like. So it's 2019, promises of levelling up. Oh, new golden age, big... I mean, this was Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson, we were supposed to believe, was going to lead a Conservative government that was about big state, not small state. By 2021, Tories were still riding high in the polls at this point. There were articles being published of particularly red wall Tory MPs being a bit concerned that, hang on a minute, the money for this levelling up doesn't seem to be there. What's going on? And now here we are. No levelling up has been done. The gap has actually widened between the haves and have-nots. The Conservatives simply labelled normal maintenance as levelling up. Fixing potholes is now levelling up. That's not being facetious. They've actually said that. And they're not even doing that properly. Like in my area, the potholes only got fixed when there was a local election last year, not the one just gone before. They've opened up again now. I wonder if the local Conservative council will at least patch them up in time for the general election, or if they can't even be bothered to do that. Or if they just don't have the money to do that. There's quite a big one around the corner. When it rains, I call it Lake Tory. And as for the promise of 100 new GP surgeries, it's just embarrassing. The promise of 40 new hospitals was a big offer at the last election. It wasn't just something they stuck in the manifesto. It was a large part of the offer. And people have noticed that none have been built. And also, officials are saying, they've been asked, are any of them, not just are they likely to be built by 2030, officials have actually asked, are any of them going to have been built by 2030? And they've said, no, it's fairly unlikely. So the Tories promised 40 new hospitals, which on close inspection, by the way, were not actually new hospitals. It was 40 refurbishments of existing hospitals, replacing buildings that are about to collapse, that sort of thing. And even those aren't being built, which is why so many hospitals have been collapsing recently. And because it was a big offer, and because the Tories cannot even point to any completions, this idea of Sunak seems laughably pathetic. I'm going to build more GP surgeries. Aren't they smaller than hospitals? You didn't even build the hospitals. Now you're promising something. You said, oh, sorry, I reneged on my promise to build the hospitals. I will build something even smaller for you instead. And then there's another question that just doesn't get asked. Didn't get asked last time. Doesn't seem to be getting asked now. It should. Even if you're gullible enough to believe that the Tories really will build this time. Oh, well, hospitals were too big for them. They're going to start off small. GP surgeries first, then we'll get some hospitals next century or something, right? Where are the doctors going to come from? Like the Nightingale hospitals highlighted the problem with building genuinely new facilities. We don't have the medical staff to operate existing hospitals, clinics and surgeries properly. How on earth are we going to staff new facilities? Question never seems to get asked. And that's because there's only one answer in the medium term. And the Tories especially don't, I mean, no politician wants to talk about this in a general election. The Tories especially never want to talk about it. Health Secretary Victoria Atkins recently promoted a Financial Times article highlighting that nursing vacancies are down at the moment. Oh, it's marvellous, look what we're doing. However, a few points of interest. First, vacancies still remain high at over 7%, which means that of all the nurses we need to staff the existing facilities, 7% of them don't exist. We don't have them. So if you actually built more clinics and hospitals, that vacancy rate would increase because you need more nurses then. Second is comparing the vacancy rate now with 2018, which was also under a Conservative government. I had a little check. What was it like in 2010? Where we were still dealing, bear in mind, with the global financial crisis, right? We're just coming out of that. The highest vacancy for any medical staff in the NHS was 4.4%. But the vacancy rate for qualified nurses was 2.5%. Over 7% at the moment. And they're cheering that. It was 2.5% in 2010. Labour might want to make use of that as well. But the third point of interest, and why the Tories really don't want people asking too many questions about this, is that getting that vacancy rate down from the high of 12% that they inflicted upon us to merely 3 times the rate under Labour was by, yes, you guessed it, immigration. The government went on a mad recruitment drive internationally to recruit. That is the only way you fill those vacancies in the short and medium term. The government do not have a long-term staffing plan for the NHS. And when they've been asked, have refused to develop one. Even when they've been asked by their own MPs, where is your 20, 30-year plan for NHS staffing that takes account of when retirements are likely to happen, and training? They don't have one. They actually don't have one. And that is because their long-term plan for the NHS is that it doesn't exist. So why would they waste their time with a long-term staffing plan for it? But of course, the simps in the news media, both print and televised, aren't bothering to make these points or ask these questions. So we have to rely on the fact that the public have been so screwed after the last 14 years that they are aware that the Conservatives have not been delivering without needing the details explained to them. If only Labour would understand how social media would allow them to explain things directly to the public like this, if they would just learn to understand it. Never mind. But there we are. It would seem that the Tories have decided to move on from plans to enslave teenagers to offering bribes to the gullible. If the polls remain in a sorry state for them next week, I wonder what they'll come up with for their third week. Promising free holidays on the moon, I shouldn't wonder. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for further content and click the like button. You can also sign up for memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.